Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the show. If you are a first-time viewer on this channel, I truly appreciate it. Or if you have been with me for a long time, it is always appreciated. We have a lot of Phoenix Suns and NBA news to talk about because sort of within the last 48 to 72 hours, we've had a lot of NBA news in general, a lot of rumors, speculation, reports floating around. And I kind of took the day yesterday just to kind of gather them all up. And I was like, you know what? I'll wait a day on it. We'll sleep on it and we will talk about a lot of this news because in my opinion, a lot of this is worth talking about. So as always, guys, do me a huge favor. Let me know how we're sounding. Let me know how we're looking. Also, apologies to you guys because earlier where I currently live, there was a giant storm. I was supposed to go live like an hour ago or whatever, and there was a big storm, and I didn't want loud thunder and lightning and the power going out, during that live show. But the storm seems to have moved away. The sun's out and everything. So thank goodness. Especially if you guys watch my show, you guys know that for some reason, every time I go live, there's always a storm. It's kind of weird. But anyways, thank you for the compliments on the beard. This is how I look when I'm not currently working at my other job, if that makes sense. This is like my vacation mode beard. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you for everybody that's in here. I don't even want to butcher this name, but he says Kyle Kuzma. We got King J-Rock in here. We got Brosif is in here. I hope I said that right. AVR G Weathers here. I don't want Kyle Kuzma. And again, shout out to King J-Rock. All right, guys. Now that those opening thoughts and everything are done with, let me take a sip of my G Fuel energy drink. If anybody's watching from G Fuel, please sponsor me because I will drink all of your products. Let me take a sip of this and we will get started. Cheers. This color's Power Palette Cherry Lollipop flavor. Is delicious. Anyways, shout out to my guy Logan. Shout out to Nathaniel, who is also here. All right, guys. So as everybody's putting in the chat right now, let's start with sort of the main topic here. I mean, there's obviously a lot to discuss. Some of this news that we're going to talk about in a little bit is sort of just now surfacing. You guys will know what I'm talking about in a minute. But let's start with Kyle Kuzma, who, let's be real, this is not the first time that Kyle Kuzma's name has been linked with the Phoenix Suns. So let's just get that out of the way right now. Kyle Kuzma has been linked to the Phoenix Suns before. So let's start here. Now, this was reported, I believe, just yesterday. And let's start with this little read right here, because I feel like this is really important. So they talk about Kyle Kuzma and his current situation and the Washington Wizards situation. And it goes on to say, Owning a $13 million player option this offseason, Kuzma is expected to opt out of his contract and become an unrestricted free agent. Originally expected to seek a new long-term deal with the Wizards, the talk of Kuzma leaving in free agency has become louder across the league, which I kind of, I think we all kind of figured that, especially with the way that, Michael Winger, the new president of basketball operations in Washington, is taking over right now. There's a real belief that the Wizards are going to pretty much blow it up and go into a brand new direction. So, with all the Bradley Beal rumors surfacing right now, it says, there is the notion that Kyle Kuzma will follow him at the door. Kyle Kuzma is only 27 years old. Multiple sources who spoke with Clutch Sports recently claimed the Phoenix Suns would be a prime landing spot for him. So this was an article that I believe I retweeted, and I've seen some other people tweet it out and stuff. This article does come from Clutch Sports. So let me just read you the last part. Multiple sources who spoke with Clutch Sports recently claimed the Phoenix Suns would be a prime landing spot for Kuzma. The article goes on. As we mentioned before, the Suns' prior interest in Kyle Kuzma, the Suns held interest in Kuzma ahead of the trade deadline this past season. So before we obviously got Kevin Durant. According to The Athletic, Shams Charania and sources say they had reached out to the Wizards in attempts to discuss trades centered around the former first-round pick, Kyle Kuzma. Then they made the move for superstar Kevin Durant, yada, yada, yada. Ultimately, discussions centered on Kuzma did not go anywhere as Washington was unwilling to move him. Now, keep in mind, you guys, that was obviously before Kevin Durant was traded for and before the Wizards moved on from, I believe it was Tommy Shepard, and that was before their new president of basketball operations, Michael Winger, was pretty much running the show. So, again, this isn't the first time Kyle Kuzma's name has been brought up and linked to the Phoenix Suns. It probably won't be the last. And I'm kind of going to paraphrase some things here that the article also wrote. Pretty much what the article goes on to say. And I will also link everything afterwards the show. You guys can read where I'm getting all these like sources and information from. Kyle Kuzma expects a contract that will pay him over $20 million, which also might kind of be the problem right there. I don't know if the Phoenix Suns can afford Kyle Kuzma. A landing spot that seems impossible for the Suns to do via straight up signing and free agency, which is why a sign and trade scenario would need to be explored. Again, this is Clutch Sports writing this. They also go on to say, could Washington be interested in a Deandre Ayton, which we're going to talk about him later? Could Washington be interested in bringing in Deandre Ayton and building with him as they go through the rebuild? The most likely path for Kuzma to land in Phoenix this offseason is pretty much a sign and trade scenario with one of the Wizards veteran guards, Monte Morris and DeLon Wright, both whom are entering the final years of their contracts. So, you guys know I can't read. I just read you guys a lot right there. Kyle Kuzma is most likely going to become a free agent, unrestricted. The Wizards are most likely going to be blowing it up because I think before I went live, Bradley Beal, the reports were Bradley Beal came out and said, yeah, you guys can talk to teams. And like, I'm pretty much approving you guys to talk to teams for a trade for me. So again, Kuzma probably going to get paid a contract over $20 million. Very unlikely the Suns could do that in free agency because we have no money pretty much. But a sign and trade is possible with Kyle Kuzma. Maybe they are interested in Deandre Ayton, especially if they're going to be blowing it up, especially if they get rid of Kristaps Porzingis and all those other guys. And Deandre Ayton is still pretty young as well. So maybe he would fit that timeline of the Wizards rebuild. Now, would Deandre Ayton even want to go there? Is the veto thing still a possibility in Ayton's contract? I have no clue. But is Kyle Kuzma, could he potentially get traded or sign and trade to the Phoenix Suns? It is a possibility. Would I be welcome to it? absolutely for the right price. Because this is a guy that has won a championship, has a history with Frank Vogel, can definitely score the basketball. Like I mentioned, I think he's only 27 years old, so he's still pretty young. Excuse me, I got to take a burp for a second. Excuse me. Apparently, he loves Phoenix too. I think there was a recent picture of him golfing in Phoenix. He loves Devin Booker and everything. He's an active tweeter, by the way. Follow him on Twitter. And again, this would just be another guy that could help Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and this, hopefully reconstructed roster that the Phoenix Suns are going to reconstruct around Devin Booker and Chris Paul. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't know how Kyle Kuzma is on defense, but I do know he's got size and he's athletic. So I would welcome a Kyle Kuzma here. Definitely one of the better scorers, and you can make the argument one of the better players in the league, which is why he's going to command, the kind of money that he's going to be, looking for in free agency. So is this potential Kyle Kuzma move? How do I word this? Is Kyle Kuzma to the Phoenix Suns impossible? No. Is Kyle Kuzma to the Phoenix Suns a possibility? Absolutely. Is it going to happen? I have no clue. I'm just reading to you guys what is being reported. And if I was James Jones and Josh Bartelstein, the people in charge of the Phoenix Suns right now, if I got a phone call for a sign and trade with Kyle Kuzma, would I welcome it? Absolutely. So we will have to see on Kyle Kuzma. But yes, I would definitely be interested in Kyle Kuzma coming to the Phoenix Suns. And I'm sort of going to kind of flip-flop topics here. I wanted to go from Kuzma to Chris Paul to Deandre Ayton, but I feel like this kind of segues into the Deandre Ayton talk. And again, some of this just came out today. My dogs are freaking out, so if you hear some barking in the background, I apologize. Let me just take another sip of my G Fuel energy drink, and we'll continue on here. You guys hear my dogs barking at all? Anyways, so let's segue into the next thing. I kind of wanted to spend more time on the Kyle Kuzma thing, but honestly, I feel like we're not going to really know much until maybe closer to free agency or maybe during free agency. I don't know. Let's segue into our next topic. And this sort of ties in with Kyle Kuzma. So, and I like to always kind of have this segment called Deandre Ayton's Future in Phoenix. So just today, before I went live, I think it was Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. There was a report that came out, and I think Bleacher Report was the one that wrote it. And it's kind of weird, but Adrian Wojnarowski says Deandre Ayton has a lean trade market. Suns, quote, have to be prepared for return. Now, keep in mind, you guys, this also comes on the heels or whatever. This, after the Suns were embarrassingly eliminated, this also, there was reports from NBA insiders. I think it might have been, what's his name? Tim McMenamin or whatever from ESPN. This comes on the heels of the reports that players were getting very frustrated with Deandre Ayton and his effort and everything and his attitude. And it also came on the heels of the reports saying like DeAndre Ayton would welcome a new team and a new situation, if you will. Now, again, that was before Monty Williams was fired and before Frank Vogel was hired. So again, this comes from Bleacher Report. DeAndre Ayton has, quote, a lean trade market, and the Suns, quote, have to be prepared for a return. Here's a little bit more information. Trade interest in Phoenix Suns DeAndre Ayton appears minimum at the moment, meaning that a return could be very likely for a big man who reportedly welcomes the idea of, quote, a fresh start somewhere else. So that's kind of what I was saying before. It's a little weird that this report is coming out because, again, of the reports that came out before. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN was on Ryan Russillo's podcast, and it was heard through the Real GM wiretap. And apparently what Woj said, and I quote, is I think the hard part for Phoenix right now is Deandre Ayton's market is lean. They have to be prepared that they're going to have Deandre Ayton back. And then let me just lower this so that I'm reading it correctly. He added, they have gone through the marketplace, and I don't think there is an obvious deal for Deandre Ayton out there. So again, this live show is on, excuse me, I got a burp. Excuse me. Again, I'm recording this live show on June 16th, 2023, about a week before the NBA draft, which anything could happen. And we're probably like, what, a couple weeks out from NBA free agency, which is July 1st. So right now, according to Woj, and according to some weird reporting around all this, it seems that Deandre Ayton's trade market is, quote, lean, and the Phoenix Suns have to be prepared to get Deandre Ayton back. So I don't know, you guys. And I don't even know how to say this, you guys. I have been like on the ladder, if you will, on the fence of Deandre Ayton. And I always say this, I'm sounding like a repetitive machine here, but it's true. I am Ayton's biggest critic, but I am his biggest believer. And if the Suns reconstruct the roster the right way around Booker and Kevin Durant, would I welcome a Deandre Ayton back? Yes. Is he going to have to work 150% harder than he did under Monty Williams? Absolutely. And that's not just because of Frank Vogel and his new coaching staff. It's because now you have a full season with Kevin Durant, Deandre Ayton, and you have a head coach that's won a championship before, and you brought Kevin Young back, and you got David Fizdale and some other coaches who we're going to go over later in the show. So I hope that Deandre Ayton is mentally ready to come back, and I hope he's physically ready to come back. And I hope that we see a completely different Deandre Ayton than we did the past few seasons. And again, if Frank Vogel, the Suns' new head coach, is staying true to his word that this team is going to compete and they're going to be scrappy and they're going to be a defensive team and yada, 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 Deandre Ayton better be ready. Because the stuff that flew under Monty Williams and some of the stuff that happened in some games and during the playoffs, I don't think that's going to fly with Frank Vogel. And let's be real, to Deandre Ayton's credit, sort of, Frank Vogel seems very optimistic about Deandre Ayton. The things that he was saying at his press conference about him, like, you know, being a top 10 center and, you know, still having like, you know, room to grow. And well, what was the word he used? Like restore or whatever. I'm just saying he better be ready, man. So if this report is true, if you guys are just joining us, again, this comes from Bleacher Report. This comes from Adrian Wojnarowski on Ryan Russillo's podcast, that Deandre Ayton has a lean trade market. The Suns have to be prepared for a return. And apparently, according to Woj, they've gone through the marketplace, and I don't think there is an obvious deal for Deandre Ayton out there. Now, look, I have no sources. I'm not connected and all that. But I wonder if this report was a little premature. You know what I mean? Because again, and I'm really just saying this off the last part of what Woj said. They've gone through the marketplace, and I don't think there's an obvious deal for Deandre Ayton out there. My point here is I wonder if this is a little premature because we're not even at the draft yet. It's not even free agency yet. Maybe some dominoes fall, if you will, during the draft. Like, let's say, I don't know, certain players get traded, or finally Bradley Beal gets traded, or draft picks from these teams get traded, and some things kind of shift around a little bit. Maybe the market opens up. Maybe team X, Y, or Z says, you know what, we could use a Deandre Ayton over here. We'll take on his contract. We'll run the offense through him, yada yada. Like let's do it. Let's trade for Deandre Ayton. So maybe Woj got whatever sources he got and said, okay, well, right now the market is lean, quote lean for DeAndre Ayton. Right now there's but like I always say on these shows, you guys, we could be having a completely different conversation next week or in 2 weeks or in a whole month. Because guys, when I went live last time, I was covering Monty Williams' Detroit Pistons press conference with my friend Leggy Sports. Go check that out, by the way. It took us like 40 minutes to get started because the Pistons didn't start the press conference for like 40 minutes. But here's the NBA key dates, you guys. Let me just lower this little banner real quick. We got the NBA draft on June 22nd. And yes, the Phoenix Suns have a pick. We're going to talk about that in a little bit later. And then, the qualifying offers, Chris Paul is obviously involved in that, and the player options and team options and all that. But then free agent negotiations can begin on June 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And then free agency is July 1st. So that's my point. I wonder if this DeAndre Ayton report and the market being lean and all that, and there's not much out there, is a little premature. But I don't know. Maybe Woj definitely knows a lot more than I do. He's super plugged in, and maybe he's right. Maybe there's not much out there. We will have to see. That's kind of and that kind of goes back to Kyle Kuzma, guys. Like, maybe Michael Winger and his team over there, I don't even know if they have a GM, to be honest, but Michael Winger is the president of basketball operations there. He's also running the Washington Mystic and the Washington's G League team. He's pretty much overseeing everything. So maybe he's interested in a DeAndre Ayton. Maybe he's like, you know what, we're going to move on from Beal, Kristaps, all these other guys, and we need a fresh young center who's under a long-term contract and all that. Who knows? I think the first domino to fall in Washington, though, is definitely Bradley Beal, who, again, if I read the reports correctly, today, Bradley Beal and his camp or whatever gave permission to other teams to discuss trades. So this Bradley Beal thing could happen like tomorrow or next week, maybe by the draft. It seems like Bradley Beal is really pushing to get out of Washington. So why wouldn't Kristaps Porzingis be next? Why wouldn't Kyle Kuzma be next? Heck, why not Daniel Gafford, who I'm actually a fan of? Why wouldn't he be next? So we'll have to see, you guys. Guys, like I cannot repeat this enough. You're gonna hear me. You're gonna get sick of me saying this. This offseason is going to be absolutely chaotic. It's going to be nuts. I'm not even talking about the Bradley Beal stuff and all these other trade rumors going on right now, like the Blazers number 3 pick and Zion or Brandon Ingram. It's going to be nuts, you guys. And I truly believe that the Phoenix Suns are going to have a lot of new faces. I think a lot of guys will come back. But there's probably going to be a lot of new faces in Phoenix. And there kind of already has been, especially with the coaching staff, where we're going to talk about later. Before we end this DeAndre Ayton stuff, and we can maybe go back to it later in the show. I hope I'm saying your name right. Paulo C. Media says, how about this trade idea? Wizards get Chris Paul for salary dump and 2 second-rounders. Suns get Kuzma, Monte Morris, DeLon Wright. We keep DA. We build DA's value. Then maybe trade him at the deadline. Whew, I wish it was that simple. I really wish it was that simple. That'd be awesome. And I remember kind of responding to a comment about DA going to like the Magic and everything last live show from somebody else. I just don't know if that would be like if the Suns would do that to Chris Paul. I see the vision there, but I think it's unlikely just because of the direction that the Wizards are going in. I'm not saying Chris Paul going to a rebuilding team is impossible because, again, right before I went live, there was sort of a Chris Paul report, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, because a lot of this show is based around Chris Paul. This would be an awesome trade, but I just don't see it happening. But the last part of your comment, though, we build DA's value, then maybe trade him at the deadline. I said that a long time ago, you guys. I said, maybe we hang on to DA, and if he's still the same DA, we trade him at the deadline. You know what I mean? Or worst case scenario, trade him next, like this upcoming offseason. Not this offseason, obviously, but the next offseason, the 2024 offseason. I think that's the absolute worst case scenario. Or if Woj's reports are true and the market is lean, then we James Jones, Josh Bartlestein, the front office just have to say, you know what? Let's get the absolute best package we can. Even if the fans go crazy, call it in. Let's get rid of DA. If they even want to get rid of DA. Maybe James Jones is stubborn and is going to keep him. I don't know, you guys. Like, I really don't know, man. So we'll have to see, you guys. Again, sort of a shorter Kyle Kuzma and a little bit short-ish segment on Deandre Ayton. But I just wanted to kind of go over my thoughts and let you guys know what's being reported on Kuzma and on Deandre Ayton. And before I take a sip of my G Fuel energy drink, we're going to move into the next segment. I wanted to originally have this be the second segment of today's show, but we're going to talk about Chris Paul and sort of the latest quote updates. Let me take a sip and we'll move on. All right. So here's the next segment, everybody. Rob, I see your question about Damian Lillard. I'll try to answer that later. But so this is sort of the newest report. I guess Chris Paul has a new book coming out. I think it's called 61. It's like dedicated to his I think it's his grandpa, his late grandfather. And it's about like his life and his career and all that good stuff. That's coming out soon. I guess he was doing some promoting for that. And I believe he spoke to Dwayne Rankin of the Arizona Republic. And here's the report. It's on the screen right now if you guys want to read it. Let me just lower this real quick. Chris Paul isn't sure what the basketball future will hold, will look like for next season, but the things I can't read, but two things are coming true. He wants to keep playing and he wants to play in Phoenix. Chris Paul said, and I quote, absolutely, absolutely. I don't want to be anywhere else. You've never heard me come in and say, I don't want to be here. You know what I mean? But I understand the business of this league, the dynamics or whatnot. So we'll see. So again, this is Chris Paul. Sources informed Arizona Republic and Dwayne Rankin that this is what Chris Paul said. I don't know if they like had a conversation or I don't really know the backstory to this, but this is coming from the Arizona Republic. And Chris Paul said that he wants to keep playing basketball and he wants to be in Phoenix. And he said, and I quote, I don't want to be anywhere else. You've never heard me come in and say, I don't want to be here. But I understand the business of the league, the dynamics or whatnot. So we'll see. So again, this goes back to the conflicting reporting about Chris Haynes' original, Chris Paul's being waived, that whole thing where I spent 2 hours reacting to that in live time. And you guys know me. I'm not really a big, excuse me, I got to burp again. That's going to be the title of this live show is, excuse me, I got to burp again. But anyways, you guys know me. I'm not the biggest salary cap guy. I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like I understand a lot of it. And especially with this new CBA stuff, if you think you know the new CBA stuff, then you must be a lot smarter than me because that stuff is a lot tougher to understand. But from some of the research that I've done, and I've seen other Suns podcasts talk about this and other NBA podcasts, pretty much the Suns can either just keep Chris Paul as is, or they can release him and then re-sign him to the veteran minimum, or they can kind of stretch out that deal. Now, I think we would still get hit with a $15.8 million salary cap or whatever it is. But if we do let go of Chris Paul, I think it saves us a little luxury tax money, which again, that's going to kind of come into play when the new CBA stuff kicks in and all that. And just so you guys know, Chris Paul averaged nearly 14 points per game last year and nearly 9 assists. But I think that this update's important just because, again, look at the graphic here. Chris Paul said, like, I don't want to leave Phoenix. I love playing here. He pretty much said, I understand the business of the league, but this is where I want to be. So I don't know, you guys. I've asked you in previous videos and in previous live shows if you guys want Chris Paul here, and I'm still curious if you guys do. What do you guys think is the best scenario for Chris Paul? By the way, we're going to react to just a very quick clip of Chris Paul, and then we're going to read sort of the latest report, which came out right before I went live. Let me just get everything set up over here, and we'll react to this quick clip here. This was posted by Overtime. Let me just, sorry guys, one-man show here. My apologies. I'm sure you guys saw this. Apparently Chris Paul, who I believe does own a house in LA and all that. Apparently Chris Paul was in LA. And now some people didn't really like this clip because they said Chris Paul's at the Lakers like practice arena and he's wearing Lakers colored shorts. But Chris Paul apparently has been working. And this is just a quick clip of him catching a lob dunk, and he throws it down. So it looks like Chris Paul is pretty healthy. Looks like he's working out there with some people. And I don't know. We'll see, you guys. Again, I can't say this enough. I've said it multiple times. Anything could happen. We could be having a completely different conversation next week. And keep in mind, you guys, I believe the Suns have to make a decision, and Chris Paul, they have to make a decision by June 28th, I believe. So we will see what happens. We will see. I don't know. Shout out to my guy, Hawks Hoops. Does great content on TikTok and YouTube. Appreciate you being here, man. Thank you to everybody that's in here right now. So again, in the chat, or if you guys are watching this later in the comments section, I want to know what you guys think the Suns should do with Chris Paul. What do you think's going to happen? If you're a salary cap, guru expert out there, let me know what you guys think. I have no clue. I just know that Chris Paul has not been waived, which Frank Vogel did confirm that, by the way. Frank Vogel was on a podcast, I think it was called The Volume, and pretty much said Chris Paul has not been waived. And by the way, you know how Frank Vogel was saying that stuff about Deandre Ayton, like, oh, I would love to work with DA, and I still believe in him, and he's a top 10 center or whatever. Frank Vogel seems optimistic in working with Chris Paul, and he even said that. He was like, I have so much respect for Chris Paul, and I look forward to working with him and all this good stuff, which as a new head coach, that's what I as a fan want to hear from a new head coach. I want Frank Vogel and his team to be intrigued by our players. It's not like Frank Vogel's going to say, oh, DeAndre Ayton sucks, I want him out of here. Chris Paul's old, get him. He's not going to say that, but it sounds good that Frank Vogel's pretty optimistic in CP3 and DeAndre Ayton. But again, Frank Vogel's not the GM, so we'll have to see. I don't know. It's going to get crazy, y'all. We are flying through this show, everybody. Again, just some topics that I kind of wanted to go over and report on. And speaking of that, or it's not really me reporting, but what's being reported, I wanted to read you guys. So let me just pause this ad on the Yahoo Sports page here. This literally came out before I went live, everybody. Nothing really breaking news here, but just a report that I feel is interesting here. Let me just share my screen real quick, and we will continue on this Chris Paul talk. This does come from Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports, who I have had on the show before. I need to get him back on, too, because when I did have Jake Fisher on, we were talking pretty much all about Kevin Durant, pretty much. But I want to get him on and actually ask him some NBA, Suns, offseason related questions. So this comes from Jake Paul, or not Jake Paul. Why did I say Jake Paul? This comes from Jake Paul. Jake Paul's a breaking news reporter in the NBA now. This comes from Jake Fisher. Do the Spurs make sense as a possibility for Chris Paul? Now, I'm not going to sit here and read the whole report. And again, this literally just came out before I went live, so I'll let you guys do all the reading, but I will kind of read you the Chris Paul segment. He talks about like the reasons why Chris Paul would potentially fit and work in San Antonio. You know, he mentions what we just went over. Phoenix is searching for trade possibility. I'll highlight it here so you guys can read it. Phoenix is searching for trade possibilities, yada, yada, yada. 15 million of his 30 million, yada, yada, yada. June 28th. We already talked about all that. And, you know, he goes into everything with San Antonio, how it could work in theory and all that. And I guess what I kind of wanted to get at here, and again, I'm kind of just reading this in live time and reacting to it. He also mentions Jay Crowder here, which I kind of want to read that. Just as the Suns considered their attempts to do, okay, never mind. It's not really Jay Crowder. But there are some names here. This is where I feel is kind of the important stuff. And some of these names we've heard before. I got to take another burp here. Now, again, I think it was like last week that these names came out from Jake Fisher, by the way. Two names to keep an eye on in Phoenix trade pursuits: Atlanta Hawks forward John Collins and Boston Celtics guard Malcolm Brogdon. The Suns acquiring either of those veterans might require a third team to accept Paul's outgoing salary, such as the Houston Rockets with their 60 million cap space and counting. Holy crap, the Rockets have 60 million in cap. But Brogdon and Collins are a pair of players Phoenix has registered interest. Let me just highlight this so you guys can see. But Brogdon and Collins are a pair of players Phoenix has registered interest in during trade conversations with Boston and Atlanta, going back to the trade deadline. There no longer appears to be, oh, wow, this is interesting. Okay. There no longer appears to be a pathway for the Suns to bring in Kyle Kuzma, who Phoenix has targeted for several seasons, sources said. Kuzma said he intends to decline his 13 million player option to test free agency. You can chalk up Kyle Kuzma as another forward who's being connected of late to both Indiana and Houston as a potential free agent target. And then again, there's some names in here that we kind of heard last week. Marcus Smart, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. The article goes on and on. It's a lot. We'd be here for like 3 hours if I read you the whole thing, because you guys know I can't read. So that's something. And again, I'll put all the links to this in the description. Since this is sort of breaking, not really news, but since this is sort of a breaking report, I will put it in the chat right now and you guys can go read it. Again, for what it's worth, I've had Jake Fisher on this show. Very nice guy, very plugged in. Now, I'm not saying everything that Jake Fisher says is 100% true, but is he one of the more connected people in the NBA? Absolutely. So I don't know, you guys. This Chris Paul thing, it's not going away anytime soon. We will have to see. And there's still a lot more to talk about. We've been live for over 38 minutes now. We got 100 people in here. So do me a favor, y'all. Crush that like button. Share the show. Tell people about Suns Geek. I know there's a lot of great Suns content creators and podcasters out there. But just do me a favor, you guys. Keep watching. Share the show. And I appreciate the support. Let me take another sip of my energy drink. I need some water too, and then we'll move on here. All right. Our next segment, everybody, sort of a juicy one, if you will. And I kind of feel this one has some weird reporting around it, sort of, but it is worth discussing. And this comes from, I believe this comes from The Athletic, if I remember correctly. Apparently, the Phoenix Suns are trying to trade into the 20s and 30s in the NBA draft. So this comes from The Athletic. The Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, Cleveland Cavaliers have explored potential opportunities to move into the 20s and 30s in the NBA draft. Sources tell Sam Vecini. He wrote, I think it was like a big old mock draft and everything. And apparently somewhere in that mock draft was mention of the Suns trying to trade into the 20s and 30s. Now, again, as I said, the Suns do have a pick in this year's draft. I think it's pick 52. Here's a little bit more information on it. Suns, Bucks, Cavs, all trying to move into the 20s and 30s due to the depth of prospects on the wing and potential NBA-ready older rotation players. Everyone explores deals this time of year, and you could probably write this sentence about any team. That is 110% facts, by the way. But those three do seem to be the teams to watch. So again, Suns trying to move into the 20s and 30s in the draft. Why? Because of the depth of prospects on the wing and potential NBA older rotation players. And the article is right here. You literally could write that up about every NBA team, even the Denver Nuggets, who, by the way, made a trade for a pick or whatever with the Thunder right before the finals ended. So teams wanting to trade up or even trade down, it's not really breaking news. That happens a lot, right? Especially around this time of year. And you could literally say that about all 30 teams. But look at the three teams that are mentioned. The Bucks, the Suns, and the Cavs, all playoff title contending teams, are all trying to move into the 20s and 30s due to the depth and older wing players. So that's interesting. Now, look, you guys, because the Phoenix Suns have become contenders, I sort of care about the draft, but I kind of don't, especially since our GM, has pretty much even gone on record and said he doesn't care about the draft. You know, that's like an actual fact. I've talked about that on this channel, made videos about it. The way James Jones goes about the draft has been pretty bad. We all saw what happened with Jalen Smith and everything. But with new ownership, and again, you're going to hear me say this person's name a lot. I believe he's our president and CEO, Josh Bartelstein, who I believe is James Jones's boss. And with Frank Vogel now here, maybe that's different. Maybe Matt Ishbia and his team are going to say, James Jones, you need to start drafting. Maybe they say, James Jones, we're going to swing a deal and we're going to have pick, I don't know, let's say 25. And maybe, and let's say it's like pick 25 and we're going to keep our 53rd pick or whatever. And you got to start drafting. So maybe that's the case. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know this draft inside and out, because I don't. I've barely done any draft homework. Why? Because again, our GM doesn't care about the draft. We're contenders. We saw what happened with Jalen Smith. It just didn't work out, right? Now, again, that was before we got Chris Paul and the rest is history, so I get it. But like, you know, let's be real. Are we going to draft the next Jokic, who was the second rounder, by the way? Are we going to draft the next Draymond Green and all that? Probably not. But could we draft a player that could fit? Absolutely. Now, keep in mind, you guys, I did a little research earlier. And a lot of this is pretty obvious because we made that gigantic trade for Kevin Durant. But the Suns owe Brooklyn unprotected first-round picks in 2025, 27, 29. Excuse me. The Nets also have pick swaps in 2028. Now, here's what's kind of weird here. Phoenix is not allowed to trade a first in any season, but can offer pick swaps in 24 and in 26. Phoenix also has 5 second-round picks available to trade. So I don't know. I don't know how they would like swing a deal into the first round. I don't know. It's weird. Maybe that's the Stephian rule or whatever that's called. I don't know. Now here's sort of the next part of the segment. And we're going to kind of talk about that. We're not going to spend too much time on this. But later in the show, we're going to talk about the Charlotte Hornets. And here's why. First off, because I guess Michael Jordan, yes, like the Michael Jordan, the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan, is apparently going to sell the team. We'll talk about that later. The Charlotte Hornets have picks 2, 27, 34, 39, and 41 in this year's draft. holy crap. They have 5 picks in this year's draft, 3 of them in the second round. They clearly don't need all those picks. Now, first off, my quick thoughts on the Hornets are I honestly believe they need to like clean house, starting with Michael Jordan, and get rid of everybody but LaMelo Ball, maybe keep Mark Williams and some other guys, but pretty much blow it up, even though they're already in a rebuild. So here's what I'm getting at. They don't need all those picks. Somebody who I trust, somebody who I respect, and you guys probably know him. He's a co-host, I think, on Locked On Suns with Brandon Clean. They do great work over there. And I think he writes for Bright Side of the Sun. Zona Hoops tweeted this out the other day. Or yesterday, excuse me. He said, poked around and got this info. Take it as you will. The Suns Kuzma stuff is very real again. But here's why I wanted to talk about the Hornets. He said, watch for the Hornets as a blah, 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 blah. Let me try that again, everybody. Watch for the Hornets as a Suns draft day trade partner. Now, I don't believe he's tweeted since this. Again, this is somebody who I trust. This is somebody who knows basketball very well. He's been following and covering the Suns for a long time now. So, again, the Hornets have picks 2, 27, 34, 39, 41. Getting pick 2 is extremely unlikely. I give it a 1% chance that even happens. But could some of those second round picks maybe be a possibility? Maybe. I don't know. Sawbuck says, Ishbia, James Jones, do your job. Like, for real, man. Sawbucks also says Suns would have to buy picks using cash. That's a possibility, Sawbucks. Thank you for reminding me. So again, as Zona says here, take this as you will. The Suns Kuzma stuff is very real, and watch for the Hornets as a Suns draft day trade partner. Oh boy. And real quick, speaking of draft and stuff, thank you for bringing this up, Logan. Underpaid players, rookie contracts, buyout signings are key to being a championship caliber team. Christian Braun was huge for the Denver Nuggets. Can I go on a side rant for a minute? Because Logan is bringing up facts right here. This is 150% true what Logan says right here. Rookie deals and those buyout signings that are really cheap. Like, I'll use kind of I guess a small example, may not be the best example, but a Terrence Ross, for example. Guys that you bring in after the trade deadline and later in the season, and you're kind of like, oh, like that team got that player. That's huge. But also guys like Christian Braun. Now, look, I don't know how Christian Braun's career is going to be going forward, but the dude won championships in high school. He won a championship in college, and now he's an NBA champion with the Denver Nuggets. That's a pretty damn great start to your NBA career. And it's not even that he just won a title, because what was his name? Peyton Watson or whatever was also a rookie, and he won a title. And I don't believe he even played. My point being, Christian Braun contributed in the NBA finals and during the playoffs and was big for them winning the title. You know, look at like a Jeff Green, for example, and Bruce Brown, who they picked up. And I'm not saying the Suns need to replicate what the Nuggets did, and I'm not saying the Suns need to build this roster to beat the Nuggets. But do you need underpaid players, and do you need solid rookies like a Christian Braun? Absolutely. There's like 10 other rookies that I could mention who were impactful this season, whether their team made the playoffs or not. You need rookies. You need young guys. I keep seeing all this stuff about, oh, the Suns should have kept Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson because they were so young. And man, I hit my microphone. Oh, we should have kept this core together for the future. Okay, I get it. You're not necessarily wrong, but that doesn't exist anymore. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker exist. Devin Booker's what, 26, 27? Kevin Durant's 34, going on 35. You can get young guys now and build them for the future. This is a terrible example, but a Darius Baisley, for example. Dude's like 24 years old. He's played in the playoffs. Not really this year, but he's, for the Thunder, he played in the playoffs. So you need solid rookies. You need guys that are cheap, that can contribute. And something that is really underrated here, you need a full season with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker to see what you got, to see if this trade was worth it or not. The Phoenix Suns, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but after witnessing the Denver Nuggets win a championship and seeing the Warriors win, after 2 seasons of injuries and everything they went through, and then seeing the Bucks beat us in the finals, and heck, seeing Kawhi go to the Raptors for a year and win, the Suns have to win a championship. They just have to. And they especially got to do it under this window, if you will, under this timeline. They have to win a championship in the Kevin Durant era. They have to. That's my rant. That's my sidetrack rant. Thank you, Logan, for the excellent comment. That was a great little rant segment there, and I appreciate it. Man, I need to take a deep breath for a second. Holy cow, man. Then we'll move on to our final topics, and then we'll get out of here. You guys know me. I do my best to try to answer all the questions, but if you have a question, get them in right now. We got a few more things to go over. Stefan, I've sort of talked about the Kelly Oubre stuff in the past. I do see your question. I would be open Kelly Oubre coming back, but it would have to be for the right price. I don't know how much he's going to command. But again, the Hornets blowing it up, even though they're already in a rebuild right now, could be a real thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly Oubre is not on the Hornets next year. Just real quick, not going to spend too much time on this next segment, but the Phoenix Suns have hired 2 more coaches. Not going to lie, not very familiar with these people, but they are on the coaching staff now. This comes from Mark Stein. He tweeted out June 12th that there's been more assistant coach movement, that Phoenix Suns are closing in on Dallas's, I can't really pronounce this name, Quentin? Is that how you say it? Quentin Crawford? To join Frank Vogel's staff. Again, I don't really know much about him, but apparently he was with Dallas for a while. But he's joining the staff. And then just yesterday, Greg St. Jean, I think that's how you pronounce it, is expected to join Frank Vogel's coaching staff, league sources say, which would give Phoenix 2 assistants, most recently in Dallas, St. Jean, Quentin Crawford, both, of course, worked on Frank Vogel's title-winning Lakers staff. So these guys were with Frank Vogel when they won the title in 2020. Yes, I don't care what you haters say. The bubble championship did count. Frank Vogel has a title. These guys have titles. And I was live during Monty Williams' press conference for the Detroit Pistons. And first off, if you want to see how much impact Monty Williams has around the league, every Pistons player was there except for Bojan Bogdanovic, because I believe he's overseas. So every Pistons player came out, but that wasn't just it. Speaking of the Suns coaching stuff, Jarrett Jack was there, and I think it was just announced today that Jarrett Jack is joining the Pistons staff. Mark Bryant was there, and I'm sure a couple other former Suns assistants were there. So pretty much the Suns the Pistons are getting a whole bunch of our former staff. I think I even tweeted about it. I think I tweeted about all the staff that Monty Williams is bringing on. And it seems like Frank Vogel is bringing on all of his guys. So a lot of coaching movement, if you will. I think I also tweeted it. We're going to find this tweet. Give me 1 second here, you guys. Ooh, and I also want to react to a jersey as well. Yeah, here's the tweet real quick. I'm not really going to share it. Follow me on Twitter if you want to read it. But I tweeted out Monty Williams is bringing his guys to Detroit with history with the Phoenix Suns. Mark Bryant, who was here for 4 years. Brian Randall, I believe that was the guy with the big beard. He was here for 3 seasons. Jarrett Jack, Steve Scazzali, and then Jamel McMillan, who was an assistant coach for us back in 2018-19, are all going to Detroit. And if you guys are just joining in, if you guys just missed it, the Suns are bringing on these 2 coaches, St. John, and Quinton Crawford, names I somehow cannot pronounce because I'm stupid, are joining the Suns coaching staff. And again, that's with Frank Vogel, Kevin Young, David Fizdale. So, yeah. I will try to answer some questions, and then we'll kind of move on to like a speed round of NBA news. So let's do that. I will read the recent questions in the chat, so get them in now. I'll try my best to answer them. And then we'll do like a speed round of NBA news, and then we'll wrap up the show. Again, shout out to Stefan. Hope I'm saying your name right. He says, hello from Serbia. How you doing, Suns Geek? Well, shout out to you, man. Thank you for watching all the way from Serbia. Appreciate you being here, man. Again, to answer his question from earlier, I've talked about it before in live shows. Same thing that I said before. I would welcome a Kelly Oubre back, but for the right price. I think he's really expensive, though. I don't know if we could get him. But is Kelly Oubre close to a 20-point per game scorer? Yeah. Has he been in the league for a while? Yeah. I would welcome it. Again, not trying to sound like a draft expert here, but Paulo says if we can get Amani Bates, that would be huge. I don't know too much about the kid. I know he's kind of like a high risk, high reward. I have seen a little bit of highlights and read some things on him, but I'm not extremely, don't know too much about him. There's one draft prospect I read a little bit about. We can go over him in a minute. But let's keep going on here. Sawbuck says, I'm pretty sure Booker and KD will do a good job of recruiting players. That is facts. Let me see. Guys who are cheap and can contribute like Shamit, never mind. You didn't say expensive and horrible at basketball. Oh my God. That's great. Okay, so I've seen this a little bit in the chat. And again, I'm answering some questions here. Then we'll do a speed round of some NBA news. And we'll talk about one prospect. Rob says, is there a world we get Damian Lillard in any trade? The key word in that is any, or should I say keywords, any trade. There is a world, probably, but is it extremely unlikely? Probably. Would you have to literally go onto NBA 2K or these little trading apps, or not apps, trading websites and cook up a trade for hours? Yes. I made a video just recently where Damian Lillard went live and said some pretty interesting things. I don't know what Portland's going to do, man. They got pick number 3 in the draft. And I don't know what they're going to do with it, man. Like, you're either going to bring in a Scoot Henderson or a Brandon Miller or whoever. What's his name? Amon Thompson or whoever. That kid, by the way, has a bunch of upside. I'm excited about him. But, like, do you build around Dame? Do you just decide to blow it up? Especially after that live show where he pretty much was kind of going on a rant. Like, it's on my channel. I clipped, like, the important stuff that he said. I don't know, man. So to answer the question, yes. Is Dame coming to the Phoenix Suns a possibility? Probably not. I just don't see how it would work financially. I don't know how a trade would work. Again, Flex from Jersey, a while ago said that the Suns could trade into the lottery. But do they want a Deandre Ayton? Like, I can't see it happening, man. That's why, like, when that report came out, I didn't, like, freak out and talk about it because, like, I don't know. I don't see it. But would I love a Damian Lillard here? Hell yeah. We'd have to get rid of Chris Paul, that's for sure. I don't know. Freddie says, is Drew Holiday a possibility? Awesome Michael Myers picture, by the way. I would say no, just because first off, I think Milwaukee loves him too much. And again, with this Bradley Beal stuff in the air, and with the reports that the Bucks are trying to trade in the second, or not the second round, the late round of the draft, I doubt it. Again, would Drew Holiday be a great point guard for us, especially under a Frank Vogel system? Absolutely. I would say extremely unlikely. Um, Shout out to Roy. Thank you for being here, man. He says, Geek, any thoughts of keeping Biombo and Landale, or do you think we will get someone new? That's a great question. I would welcome back both a Jock Landale and a Bismack Biombo. The problem is you probably want someone better. Like as your I can't see a scenario where we would keep flipping a Jock Landale and a Biombo as our starters all season. You would need a third. You would need a number one starting center, then bring those guys back. So, yeah, I would welcome it. I mean, that's continuity, that's experience, that's hustle, that's defense, all put into those two guys right there. But speaking, how we were talking about Zona earlier, Zona brought up an interesting tweet. He's been on the Brook Lopez train for a while. And he tweeted out, like, I don't care how it's done. Like, get Brook Lopez here, get a Kyle Kuzma, get Alex Caruso. I would love a Brook Lopez here. Now, is that realistic? I don't know. But we would need somebody else with Biombo and Jock Landale. Logan, I do see your comment here about the second rounders. I did read an article from Bright Side of the Sun from Damon Allred. That guy's always studying young prospects, and he knows his stuff. I did see the guys that we've reportedly brought in. The only one that I've really done research on, and I put research in quotation, so take this with a grain of salt, everybody, because I'm not a draft expert. I believe it might have been The Athletic. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. With pick number 52, it was Sam Vecini. And in his latest mock draft, 52nd overall, he said that he has the Suns drafting Miami's Jordan Miller. So I did a little bit of homework. Jordan Miller fits the mold of a player Phoenix could target in the 2023 NBA draft. 5 seasons between George Mason and Miami. He's 6'7". Wow, I can't talk. Miller is 6'7", not 7'6". Averaged 15, 6, and 2 last season, and was the national runner-up, second leading scorer. An efficient 55% shooting, 35% from 3. Miller's length and play for a defensive-minded coach like Jim, I can't pronounce that last name. Not to mention Suns GM James Jones' affinity for his alma mater could put him on Phoenix's radar. Again, Sam Vecini saying that the Suns could be interested in Jordan Miller. I think that's his name. We'll have to see. I don't know. But, Logan says Marquise Noel is on here. And James Jones is a little bit weird with what he reveals. A lot of teams are like, hey, we're bringing in this guy for our draft workouts. And, hey, we've worked out player XYZ. Suns don't do that. And that's why the Suns draft talk, I think, is a little low, because we just don't know. And who knows, you guys, we've talked a lot about the draft and the Suns in this show. The Suns could just trade pick number 52. I don't know. All right, let's see if I missed any questions here. I'm kind of scrolling up to see if I missed any. Chris Murray is a pretty intriguing pick. Keegan Murray's brother. Good size, 3D player with crazy upside. I would love that, especially with how good of a season Keegan Murray had. That'd be awesome to get his brother in here. Let's see. Just make sure I didn't miss any questions. Well, if you guys got any final questions, let me know. We're going to do a speed round of NBA news. A lot of it just came out today. Okay. Yeah, Terrence Ross is good. No cap. Good role player. Okay. Could we get Orlando's number 6 and 11 for Ayton? I wish we could. Is that extremely unlikely? Yeah, because my thoughts on Orlando. First off, don't forget they still got Wendell Carter over there, who had a really good season for them, if I remember correctly. They just drafted Paulo Banchero. They got Franz Wagner. Now, I have heard that they are, there's apparently a rumor they might trade Cole Anthony. That dude can score, but he's coming off the bench for them. Orlando's sort of like, I'm a little optimistic for them. I'm not saying they're going to like make the playoffs next year. I'm not saying they're going to have like a Sacramento Kings kind of run, but I believe they have one of the brightest futures in the league. They got a great GM over there, great staff, great players and all that. They're just kind of a few pieces away. They might need some veterans in there. They're definitely guard heavy. So I doubt they would trade their 2 lottery picks. I forgot they had 6 and 11. Like I knew they had a lottery pick, but I forgot they had 2 of them. I think that's extremely unlikely. All right, we're going to do a speed round of NBA news. So get your questions in before we end the show, everybody. And then maybe we'll go over some fan art Friday that the Suns Twitter account tweeted and posted and all that. So quick news. This all happened this morning, or at least when I woke up. You guys know that Bob Myers from the Golden State Warriors stepped down due to, I believe, personal reasons and just was done with the job and all that. Golden State Warriors executive Mike Dunleavy Jr., former NBA player, by the way, has agreed to become the franchise's new general manager. 15-year playing career, blah, blah, blah. 4 titles, all that stuff. A lot of question marks around Golden State. I won't spend too much time on this, but who knows what's going to happen with Draymond Green? Pretty much as long as they have Steph Curry, you got to assume they're competing for a championship. They're at least trying to. They clearly have a lot of roster problems. You know, they were terrible on the road. They lost in the second round, I believe. So it's like, you know, Klay Thompson is sort of declining, and like, what do you do if you're the Warriors? That's what Mike Dunleavy Jr. is gonna. And you just lost Bob Myers, so like, they got a lot of questions around them. I don't know what's gonna happen. Continuing on, speed round of other NBA news. Michael Jordan, as we talked about this earlier, Michael Jordan, yes, the Michael Jordan, is finalizing a sale of the Charlotte Hornets, ending his 13-year run. Now, Evan Sedry on Twitter pointed this out. This is something to note. If you're a Charlotte Hornets fan and you're listening, a keynote in Woj's report, Michael Jordan will continue to oversee basketball operations through next Thursday's NBA draft and the start of free agency on July 1st. Which kind of makes sense because you got to assume the sale is going to take a while to process, sort of like the Suns when Matt Ishbia bought the team. So Jordan is still technically the owner. Now, that doesn't mean Jordan's going to be like, oh, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, and you got to do this while I'm still here, but he'll oversee it. Now, again, I gave my thoughts on the Hornets earlier. They have 5 picks in this year's draft. They don't need all of them. I truly believe they should keep LaMelo and Mark Williams and get rid of everybody else on that roster because they're just not good. They're a terrible team. They need somebody strong who can run the team. You might need to go a different coaching direction. I love Steve Clifford, but you might need a new coach. I don't know. Also, I'm not really going to talk about this. I'm sure you guys heard, because I know everybody has their different opinions on gun laws and all that stuff. But Ja Morant suspended 25 games. I'm not going to touch that subject. I just want to let you guys know. Suspended 25 games for the Instagram live thing. Clearly, he needs a lot of help. Clearly, the Memphis Grizzlies need a lot of veteran, strong leadership in that locker room and in the front offices and everything. So I don't know. Memphis is also another team that I still think there's going to be a really good team, but Ja Morant obviously elevates them to be better. I don't know. We'll see. So before we end the show, we will do a fun little segment here where we will, let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions. Excuse me. Oops. Roy says Suns Geek. Not a Suns question, but where do you think Harden will go? 76er or Houston or the 76ers? I don't know, man. I wish I knew the answer to that. Are both of those teams a possibility? Yeah. I doubt he comes to Phoenix. I doubt there's even a scenario how that would work. I don't know. I'll use my cop-out answer. He's going to stay in Philly. Why? Because of Nick Nurse. That's why. Again, I don't know. Isn't he only under contract for like one more year? I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. I saw your comment, Logan. Deandre Ayton for Zion, because why not? Oh, God. Listen, Zion gets a little too much hate, everybody. Because let's be real, when that dude is healthy, I'm not even joking, he's like a top 10 player in this league. Call me crazy. That's a hot take. That's my clickbait right there. He's like a top 10, 15, 20 player in this league. But again, it's the injuries, it's the weight. Maturity isn't a problem with Zion. I think Zion is a very mature player. Yes, there was that scandal or whatever with the you-know-what star. But I don't care. Maturity-wise, that dude is solid, but I can't see that ever happening in a lifetime. But are there some players on the Pelicans I would want on the roster? Absolutely. Thank you, Backcourt Highlights. I appreciate you. All right, y'all. Real quick, we're going to end the show. We're going to do this little fun segment. Let me just pull up the tweet right here. This was tweeted out by the Phoenix Suns Twitter account. If you guys want to see better quality pictures. Ooh, and then we'll also react to a jersey, and then we'll call it a day. By the way, follow me on Twitter, by the way, at Suns Geek, or just search Suns Geek and you'll find me. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok, by the way. Yes, I call it TikTok. So I'm on Twitter, as you guys can see. I'll lower this little banner so you guys can see the pictures. So the Suns Twitter account tweets out, hey, Fan Art Friday, send us your pictures, yada, yada, yada. First off, hilarious picture right here from Prime D Book. He says, go Suns. And the Suns Twitter account responded saying, perfect, no notes. I love that. That's hilarious. That's great engagement, by the way, from whoever's running the Suns Twitter account. That's a hilarious picture. I love that right there. But there's some better pictures here that we're going to react to. Freckled Mamba's always coming up with cool graphics and everything right there. I don't know if he did those or, yeah, I believe it was, yeah, he did these. That's pretty cool right there. I'll kind of go back and you guys can react to those. But there's some other ones. Picture of TJ Warren in his college uniform. Somebody went to a game and got this picture signed right there of their artwork of D-Book. That's pretty cool. Let's see what else we got here. Some cool KD graphics in the Suns City Edition uniforms. Pretty awesome. And another one here of D-Book. Some great artwork out there. If you guys want to check all these out, I'll kind of just scroll down and you guys can check it all out. This one's cool. Looks like they're in the desert. Giant sun in the background. Chris Paul, KD, Booker all shooting and all that. It's pretty cool. But yeah, you guys can go check that out. Somebody got a Phoenix Suns gorilla tattoo. That's badass right there. Looks cool. So yeah, Fan Art Friday. Right there. Ooh, by the way, this is a cool Photoshop. I believe this comes from Basketball Forever. I just made a video talking about this. Go check it out. Should the Suns pursue Yuta Watanabe? And I said that name slowly because I don't know how to pronounce it either. It's either Utah or it's Yuta Watanabe. Good player, by the way, from the Brooklyn Nets who did play with KD. All right, y'all. My brain is fried. I think that's pretty much going to be it. I think I've talked about everything I've wanted to talk about. Again, a lot of this is just reports. A lot of this is just rumors, speculation. And it's going to get crazy from here, everybody. Again, we went over it earlier. We have the NBA draft, June 22nd. That's a Thursday, by the way. Then negotiations can begin. We got Chris Paul's contract thing before that, but negotiations can begin June 30th. So pretty much June 30th, free agency starts. Then July 1st through the rest of July's free agency. Then we got Summer League. Then there might be some trades. And then, then there's sort of a slow gap in the news. But with the NBA nowadays, seems like there's NBA news every day. And then, it's training camp and then the season begins. It's like 4 months, you guys, 4 months. Ooh, but there's the, what's that? Like the United States, younger Olympic team, Mikal Bridges is on there. Cam Johnson just got the invite. Anthony Edwards is going to be there. All these other great guys, like that's going to be shown on TV and stuff. Now, I don't know how the time zone is, but we're going to have a little bit of basketball during the summer, and then all of a sudden it'll be training camp, and then season will begin. So strap in, everybody. It's going to get crazy. Buckle your seats. Get ready. Follow your correct sources and everything. It's going to get crazy from here, y'all. So my voice is fried. I'm tired. I hope you all have an incredible weekend. Happy Father's Day out there to everybody. Happy Father's Day to my dad. Appreciate you. Love you. And I appreciate all the real good dads out there to their families. And also shout out, a couple birthday shout outs. Shout out to one of my oldest friends, Brian. Happy birthday to you. He was the one that, I don't know if you guys can see it. He was the one that gave me those Chucky pictures in the background. And shout out to my good friend, RJ, who I used to go to a bunch of Suns games with, one of my good friends. Shout out to him, big Suns fan. Thank you to everybody as well in the chat. Thank you to Logan. Thank you to Big Merc, Roy, Sawbucks, Paulo, all you guys, Backcourt Highlights. You guys are all awesome. I'm out of here, everybody. Great live show. Stay tuned, everybody. You guys already know the drill. If it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. Stay tuned for more content. By the way, I just did a sort of like a poll, a voting poll, and I submitted feedback. I asked you guys for feedback. I said, hey, what do you guys want me to do this off season? You want more YouTube shorts? You want more live shows? You want more videos? Let me know, guys. Like I try to read every comment I can. So just leave a comment or DM me or tweet me. Say, hey, I want you to do this. I'll try to do it. Keep in mind, I'm literally a one-man show over here, so it's tough, but I'll do my best. I feel like we're having really good live shows. I feel like I've gotten better at live shows, so like I might kind of keep going with the live shows thing here, but I can still make videos too. Like, just let me know, guys. So I'm out of here, y'all. I love you guys. God bless you guys. Stay safe out there. Again, if it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. We're going to get a lot more news, a lot more reports and everything coming soon. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. And as always, go Suns. Yes, Logan, NBA draft live show next week. Definitely. Thanks for watching, everybody.
What's up, son?